All right, it looks like we are live.
Beautiful.
Let's see where the attendees are. Okay, I feel like you guys can start. I'm trying to see where the people are, but it looks like we're okay.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Happy almost Friday. Tessa, good to see you again.
Just a second, Christian, can you see like the participant panel on your end?
I see the attendees and the
Okay,
panelists.
great. I cannot see the attendees, so I'm glad that you can see people.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, we
cool.
got
Keep going. Sorry about
some
that.
people trickling in, so maybe we'll give it like a moment or two before we get started here.
Cool. Sorry about the interruption.
Can everyone see the screen okay? Maybe just put like a brief hand up if everything looks good. Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Okay, super. Great. I'm also going to mute myself and go off camera now. I'll let you two take it away when you're ready.
All right, how's it going, everyone? Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time to learn more about why you might want to consider switching from QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online. Richard, if you don't mind going to the next slide. Uh, our agenda for today, we're going to go over our introductions. Uh, Matt and I, this is Matt, by the way. We're going to be covering trends and what's happening in the market. We'll do an overview of QuickBooks Desktop versus QuickBooks Online by Matt. My name is Christian. We'll be doing an overview of Katana and its role in why you may want to consider switching from desktop to online. We'll also cover where Katana and QuickBooks come together, and we'll do a short Katana walkthrough that's going to be about 5 minutes. We won't have time to do like an in-depth demonstration of the product, but if you are interested in learning more, we will have a Q&A after the demonstration, and you'll also be able to book meetings with myself and Matt after if you'd like to learn more about Katana and QuickBooks Online. Matt, I'll pass it over to you.
Awesome, awesome. Hey, thanks everybody for joining. Really excited to share all this with you. A little bit about myself. I live in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm an account executive at Intuit. What we specialize in here is on our team is helping customers move from desktop to online, oftentimes with third-party providers like Katana. So helping them create custom solutions that require them to not have to use outdated desktop-based softwares or go to a big NetSuite or something crazy expensive like that.
Cool. As you can see, both Matt and I, we enjoy the forest as well, which is why our pictures are there. All right, you can go to the next slide, Richard. All right, so Matt, I think this is you. Trends and what's happening in the market today.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. So yeah, there's a big shift to cloud-based solutions like QuickBooks Online. And this is just reflective of a broader trend in the accounting software industry where people are enjoying the value of the flexibility, the automation, and collaborative features through APIs that the cloud platforms offer. So this is mainly for companies looking to modernize their accounting processes. QuickBooks Online is increasingly becoming the preferred choice of both customers, businesses, and accountants. So it is the way of the future. Richard, if you want to go to the next one.
In terms of like what we see, typically the clients that we speak with, the reasons why they come to us is because they have a lack of accessibility of information because of their on-premise solution. So maybe they're looking for something that's more cloud-based, that their hybrid or fully remote workers can have access to. Another reason is because the businesses that we work with initially thought because as a growing business, they should go with the big ERP system. But what they found is, these implementations have failed to a number of reasons, whether that's timeline or just lack of scope of the project. On-premise software is also difficult to scale for fast-growing companies. And what we found is small businesses feel that they need to go with a full ERP, invest a significant amount of money to run their business effectively, and ultimately deciding that it was too large of an investment and took up too much time to actually implement. So some of the, I guess, feedback that we've gotten from customers that have previously used an ERP system is that it's like building with concrete, right? So a lot of those processes that you have today, if they change in the future, which they often do if you're a growing business, it's really difficult to change those processes with the ERP. So it's going to be costly to develop those new changes and also time consuming. So these are some of the reasons that we'll dive into later on. Yeah. Go ahead, Richard.
All right. So this is a little bit of some of the differences between QuickBooks Desktop and Online. Obviously, the ones we talked about earlier, being cloud-based and not on-prem. First point here, accessibility. With the desktop, you're locally installed. You're limited to one machine or network, or you're stuck setting up a network and dealing with the IT costs there, or hiring somebody to deal with that. With QuickBooks Online, none of that is an issue. It's cloud-based. It's accessible from any device with internet. Phone, tablet, computer, doesn't matter. And that's also easy to get on any computer. With the desktop, you have to download it on each new device or set up a network or some kind of remote sharing service. Same with the user interface. The user interface of desktop, it's a little clunky. It's complex. It's designed for people who are experienced with accounting softwares or accountants. QuickBooks Online is a lot simpler. It's easier to use. If you've ever jumped in it, you can get to anywhere you want in the product from four or five different ways. It's really easy to jump around if you've never used an accounting software. Someone like me could figure it out, which says a lot. As far as updates goes, with desktop, you're going to have to manually update the program, or your IT company is going to have to go on an update whenever we drop a new release, which is usually 3 to 4 times a year. With the online, you never have to worry about that. There's never the issue. With that, though, with the updates and the backups, every time you're doing that, if you're not hiring somebody to do it, you're using an old device, there's always the risk of messing up the file, losing data, security breaches. With the online, everything's backed up for you. Everything's updated for you. There's no delay. If you're using enterprise or desktop with a big company and you guys need to update for some new feature, you got to take it down for a day, go through and update all the machines. It's a process. And then there's always the risk of losing data there. With integrations, that's probably the biggest area where we see people really enjoying QuickBooks Online, or at least where I've seen it. There's very limited integrations with the desktop. It's doable, but it's clunky. It's oftentimes very manual, where you're having to do a manual sync every day or every week. Again, data gets lost there, and it's relying on how you have it set up on the network. So if you're not completely set up properly, it's not going to update to every machine. With QuickBooks Online, we have an open API. It's super easy to connect to. We'll see that in a minute with Katana, but it's super simple and it's a lot less manual. And then multi-user access. That's another huge, huge reason people like online. You got to get additional licenses for every user on the desktop, and you've got to set up a multi-user mode. And if you're not all in the same location, you got to set up some kind of network or sharing service. It's just a lot of effort. And then it's not always in real time either. Depending on your network or how good your internet is or how good of a system you have in place, there's a delay in the data transfer. There's also certain tasks that you can't do when other people are in the system, like running payroll, updating user permissions, things like that. You have to have everybody sign out, do the change, and then everybody signs back in. It's kind of a nightmare. With the online, it's quite a bit different. Nobody's got to sign out to do certain tasks. Everybody can be in at the same time. You don't need extra licenses for it. You don't have to be reliant on network or server for anything like that. It's a lot easier. And then scalability, another really big one, maybe even bigger than the multi-user portion. With the desktop, there's a limit to how far you can go, and that's due to everything we've talked about up until this point, but mostly that's due to the fact that integrations are tough. So with the desktop program, you're kind of stuck with what you got. There's some limited integrations. You can add certain pieces on, but it's not as easy to connect with other programs. It's not as easy to scale and grow as your needs change. With the online, that open API, the ability to connect to other pieces and tools makes it really easy to build out a custom solution that can carry you a lot further than the desktop can. And we can move on, Richard. Thank you. And then businesses that are shifting from desktop to QuickBooks Online. Short answer is pretty much any kind of business in any size can make the move, but there are certain businesses that want to make the move more than others. That would be growth-oriented companies, so companies that are trying to evolve and keep up with the small to medium-sized enterprises. We obviously don't do well with like mass billion dollar companies, but we can work with some really large and complex companies with some of these custom built solutions. The biggest one would be remote or distributed teams. So people who are, excuse me, not all in the same place. Like we talked about earlier with the desktop, you're limited on how that works. It's a lot of extra effort to set up. It costs money to run a server, costs money to have people remoting in. There's the pain of having to kick people out to do certain things. Oh, okay, good. And then people who need to connect into more apps, kind of like we talked about a minute ago. If you're using third-party softwares and you're manually putting that data in, or you're doing things on a spreadsheet and thinking about using something like Katana, you may want to look at QBO as well. And then people who are looking to be more efficient, automate. There's a lot of automation capabilities with the online version. There's connected bank feeds, automated bill pay, the integrations we've talked about, automatic backups, workflows. There's so many things that you can streamline and automate that are not available in the desktop. And then businesses, this is a big one. This is really the biggest when it comes to cloud security and data security. We talk to customers all the time who have had issues with their data being corrupted. They don't really know what they're doing with the IT side of things. They don't want to pay somebody to do it. They don't want to have to learn how to do it. Nobody gets into business so that they can learn IT. Businesses that don't have the resources to manage their own data security, pay somebody else to do it for you. Think of QuickBooks Online as like a storage facility. They're gonna protect your data and guard it better than you can for a lot less money and time than you're gonna spend doing it yourself. All right. And then we'll talk a little bit about change management. So change management, what does that mean? That means leading through a change. So how to make the change less scary than it is. A lot of times what it comes down to, when I talk to these customers, they've been using desktop for a number of years, maybe 10, 20, 30 years. Most of the time it comes down to they're afraid of the change for a number of reasons. One of them might be education. So maybe they don't know what the cloud is. You hear the term, when I first heard the term cloud, I'm like, cloud, I don't want my data in the cloud. It's just the internet. A lot of times it's just explaining what the cloud is, how it works, kind of like I talked about earlier with the storage facility. You're paying somebody to do it better than you can at a lot less money than it would cost you. Common misconceptions about the cloud. Oh, everybody can see my data. My data is just going to be out there for everybody to look at. No, it's not. Actually, it's more secure this way. And then migration. That's another really big one where people are like, well, what about they're different programs? They look different. How's my data going to transfer over? We've got a super easy migration process. We automate all of that for you. We actually have a team that'll do it for you and with you. Super simple, less than an hour. And then managing the transition step by step. So what do we mean by that? We're talking about so working with a sales consultant. If you're using a third party like Katana, working with them at the same time and making the change step by step. So having somebody to tell you, hey, this is the order of operations that you should do things in, laying out the instructions for you and giving you the tools to do it. And then following those instructions and having the support resources when things come up, if they come up. A lot of times it's I talk to customers who've made the change in the past. They didn't have the right resources. They didn't have the right team. So they get stuck and then they give up because it gets hard. A lot of times it's just one little thing that was left out, and we can go back and fix that. And then continuity of critical features. So all the stuff that we've talked about so far, all of the things that we've mentioned, a lot of times when we talk to customers, at first they're like, oh, I don't want to change. I don't like change. And then we start talking, they're doing this manually, they're doing that manually, their data is not secured. And we end up finding out that the 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 benefit of all of these things that we've gone over is much, much heavier than the weight of staying the same, than keeping in that comfort zone. And then the migration, we'll talk about that a little bit more. So the migration is super easy. We've done, at this point, I've personally done thousands and thousands. As a company, we've done millions. We've got a really streamlined process for it. To kind of give you the cliff notes on how it works, if you're a customer moving from desktop to online, most customers, there's a small exception with customers that have larger files. We have a process for that too, which I'll go over. But for most customers, when you get QuickBooks Online, your consultant is gonna send you a phone number that you're gonna call, and that migration team is gonna walk you through every step. What those steps are, you're gonna log into the product. It's gonna say, hey, where are you bringing data from? You're gonna say QuickBooks Desktop. And then it's going to say, do you want to bring all your data or do you want to bring just your list? You're going to say which one you want to bring, and then it's going to do everything else for you. It's going to literally do it all for you in the background. You don't have to touch anything or move anything. Like I said, for most people, it takes less than an hour. For those bigger customers, we've got a couple options. We've got the bringing over just the lists, because there is a file size limit on what you can bring over. It's pretty massive. Most people don't hit that number, but for the ones that do, we've got the option to bring over lists. We've got third-party tools that you can use that are not manual, but are a little more time intensive, something like Transaction Pro, data export tools. And then we've also got consultants we work with that we can refer you to that will do everything for you and also help with implementation.
Well, thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thank you.
Great information there, especially about the migration from desktop to online and what that process looks like. So sounds like it's pretty simple and straightforward. At a high level, what Katana is, if this is your first time learning about Katana, it's an easy to use cloud inventory platform. So we've designed this specifically for growing businesses. We'll talk a little bit more about like the industries and types of customers that work best for our platform. But at a high level, we work with over 1,500 businesses. We're in over 700 countries. We have the differentiation of allowing you to create unlimited free users, and you don't have a SKU limitation in our platform. Okay. In addition to that, you can also integrate as many platforms as you like. So just like QuickBooks Online, we also have an open API. Speaking of onboarding and that transition process, half of our customers typically onboard in under 6 weeks. Okay, go ahead, Richard. So the approach that we've taken as a company to solve this problem is we wanted to be the best of breed in manufacturing, resource planning, and inventory management. And the inspiration from our founders was because they used to be consultants for manufacturers and business that primarily work with inventory. And at the time, the only two options they had were, legacy solutions or spreadsheets, or giant ERP systems. So there really wasn't anything that was kind of in the middle that gave smaller to medium-sized businesses flexibility. So with that in mind, they wanted to build a solution specifically for those size of companies. The way that they wanted to do things differently, they wanted to make it easy to use. They wanted to make it easy to train on. Half of the time that implementations fail is because it's too complicated or too hard for the actual end user to learn how to use the platform, right? So that was something that we have a priority on even to this day. And then in addition to that, we wanted to ensure that support was there, right? Oftentimes we hear from our customers that with their current platform, it takes a long time to hear back from somebody. There was limited support during the onboarding process. So all of our customers get dedicated onboarding, as mentioned previously, the typical onboarding time is under 6 weeks. And our customer support is actually part of our team. So we don't outsource our onboarding at all. So if you're looking to speak to somebody, you can expect a response within 20 to 30 minutes or less, right? And that's if you're based in the United States, you're likely going to be speaking with somebody that's also based in the United States. Cool. Okay, go ahead, Richard. So the typical challenges that we hear and we solve for is lack of transparency and real-time insights into inventory processes. So you may have an understanding of what you currently have in stock, but maybe you're unsure of how much of that stock is committed to production, or how much of that stock is committed to sales orders that you haven't fulfilled yet. And for obvious reasons, that's going to cause problems. So with our platform, and you'll see this on the demo shortly, you'll have a bird's eye view of the stages and commitments of all of your inventory. Aligning inventory with changing demand. So this is something that's especially a challenge for businesses that work with wholesale clients like Costco or Walmart. So if you have limited inventory and you have competing orders that you need to reprioritize, Katana allows you to, in real time, drag and drop to reprioritize orders, and inventory will get reprioritized and allocated to those orders that are highest in the queue. Keeping sales, purchasing, inventory, and accounting data in sync. Managing incoming orders from multiple sales channels. So if you're on Shopify or WooCommerce or Walmart, or maybe you get EDI orders from Costco, we allow you to plug in as many sales channels as you like and connect it to your respective locations in Katana, right? Keeping information up to date across all software services. So using a platform like Katana allows you to have a single source of truth for your data. Outdated, unsupported business systems, right? So again, our priority as a company is to continually innovate the product. And even like just this year alone, we've already released, several new features just within this quarter. And then of course, to end off, poor usability of current systems and optimizing costs during a recession. So who does the ideal customer look like for if you want to consider using Katana? So we typically work with businesses that are in consumer packaged or consumer product brands. So if you're a repetitive manufacturer and you need to be able to convert raw materials into a finished product and you sell those products, we're probably going to be a good fit. So although that is our ideal fit, we also do work with businesses that are strictly resellers. We also work with businesses that do use Katana for job costing, project management. But typically, if you're a repetitive manufacturer or you're selling your inventory on e-commerce channels, we're probably going to be a good fit. Okay. So this is kind of the typical, I guess, tech stack that we see from our customers. And this is just a sample of the types of integrations that are possible. Again, Katana does have an open API. So natively, we have integrations with Shopify, BigCommerce, WooCommerce. We have third-party integrations with the brands and the logos that you see below. And anything that you're using that is cloud-based, we do have an open API, again, so you can connect those platforms to Katana. And again, we do have a native integration with QuickBooks Online. So you'll see a little bit more on the demo about how those work. Okay. Couple highlights. So 20%, 21% of our customers see an increase in inventory turnover ratio. 12% see a reduction in stocked inventory. And again, 50% of the businesses that we work with are onboarded within 6 weeks. If you've ever implemented an ERP before, you know that it can take much, much longer. So this is, again, one of the benefits of transitioning to a combination of both, two specialized platforms like Katana and QuickBooks Online is the speed of implementation. Okay. So how do QuickBooks Online and Katana work together? So you do have advanced inventory management, where Katana would play that role of being your source of truth for inventory, forecasting and inventory planning, warehouse management, production planning and scheduling, and shop floor data collection. So oftentimes I still hear people when I ask them, what does your, production process look like? There's people on the shop floor with a clipboard and a piece of paper that are writing down, what they use for the production, how long it took them, and then somebody has to go around, collect those sheets of paper, and then decipher the chicken scratch if it's not legible, and then enter that into their ERP system. We have a specific app that takes the place of that, so it makes it super simple. All the shop floor employees have to do is confirm the quantity that they consumed, hit start and finish, and Katana will time that in real time. That information goes directly into Katana, so you don't have to go around and collect those sheets of paper. The only drawback is you may be losing out on some of the steps that you get walking around the shop floor. That's going to be the last joke that I'm going to attempt today. With that being said, omni-channel sales consolidation, we already talked about that as well. And we do give you the ability to partially ship inventory, partially receive inventory, partial invoicing, and partial billing. And that works directly with QuickBooks Online. Okay, so really simply, this is what the integration with QuickBooks Online looks like. So some of the differences here is your sales orders and purchase orders are going to have to originate in Katana first. And what happens is when you're ready, you can push those sales orders into QuickBooks Online as an invoice, purchase orders as a bill, and then we'll match the items, customer suppliers, and the tax rates. That sync happens in real time. So you may have spoken to other providers where they say that they have a QuickBooks Online integration, but that happens maybe once a day at the end of the day. Ours happens in real time. Okay. All right, so many of you are probably eager to take a look at the platform. So we're going to dive in and show you kind of like a high-level overview of the typical parts of the platforms that our customers use. Obviously, every business is different and has their own unique needs. So if there are certain things that you weren't able to see today, I would encourage you to reach out to Matt and I after this so we can schedule a call to understand your business and actually show you how we can address your specific business's challenges. Right. So in a moment, you should see my screen. Give me a little hand up if for a moment, if you can see everything okay. Excellent. Thank you, Nick, Eugene, and others. What we're looking at here, this is your inventory from a bird's eye view. So like I mentioned earlier, not only can you see what you have in stock, but you can also see what you're expecting to receive. So if you have a purchase order, for example, you could see the specific purchase order, the quantity, and the date that you're expecting to receive it. Likewise, you could see committed inventory. How much of your stock is committed to production or committed to sales orders? You can also set a safety stock threshold here. So if you ever dip below that, you'll get a notification at the top and you'll be notified, hey, these are the SKUs that you need to take a look at that you may need to make or purchase. So that being said, it makes it really simple for you. If you've identified that there's a SKU you need to purchase, you can actually generate a purchase order right from the stock screen. You can also allocate or assign default storage bin locations within your warehouse. And if you're doing kits and bundles for any of your products that you don't make to stock, you can also see the potential over here. Okay. Our platform supports a bill of materials. So if we take a look at a product, for example, this is how Katana will help you commit the inventory that's required to manufacture one of those products, right? So here's an example of one of the clients that I've worked with that make honey, right? So as you can see, you can allocate a label, jar, lid, what other components you need. And what's not demonstrated here is you have the ability to put ingredients or sub-assemblies in here for other components that have their own bill of materials. So we can handle quite a complex manufacturing process. In addition to that, you can also assign specific production operations. So this is how we can help you with more of like the manufacturing and management side. You can set several different processes over here. You can estimate different times. So yeah. Sales list at a high level. Let's say you've connected your Shopify or other channels. All of your orders are going to come into Katana again in real time. And you'll immediately be able to identify through our stoplight system, do you have the product in stock? If you don't, you can see the expected date that you're expecting to have it in stock, whether it be from a purchase order or from completed production. And if you don't have it in stock, you can verify whether or not you have the ingredients or the raw materials to manufacture that product. Like I was mentioning earlier, you do have the option to drag and drop orders and reprioritize them in the queue. So if it's the highest in the queue, Katana will automatically reallocate the raw materials to that order. Okay. Lastly, our manufacturing. So this is what's going to allow you to optimize your production schedule. So Katana will take into account your total planned production time. It'll do it by order. And again, it uses the stoplight system to allow you to determine whether or not you have that in stock. Okay. Purchase orders. You could create purchase orders within our platform. And when you receive that inventory or whenever you decide, you can submit it as a bill, and that's going to push that into QuickBooks Online. So when sales orders get pushed over into QuickBooks, you'll be able to see them over here. Okay, and likewise with your purchase orders, they'll come through over here in QuickBooks Online. Okay. So hopefully that gave you a bit of context. If there is a lot of questions that you have, I think this is a good opportunity to voice them. And just like how Intuit can support you with that transition, Katana also does provide you with guided onboarding, a dedicated implementation partner, and unlimited support.
Yeah, before we go on, just to touch on what he said there, I've had a lot of my own customers that have worked specifically with this combination, and I can attest to that hand holding throughout the process. They are very good at that. That by the way, I'm gonna put that QR code. We just had a new calendar come up, so I'm gonna put a new link in the chat. But yeah.
Cool. I'm back and I'm gonna kickstart the Q&A. So question from Rahul is we want to move from desktop to online, but to not have the sales order feature in QBO prevents us, but not having the SO feature in QBO prevents us. Any thoughts?
I think we can both touch on that. That's exactly what something like Katana is for. I mean, those are the kind of gaps that we're talking about. Excuse me. Where a solution like QuickBooks Online and Katana really makes a lot of sense because we don't have those distribution, manufacturing, and wholesale workflows native to QuickBooks Online. And we're not planning to add a lot of them. So something like Katana really is a good fit there.
Amazing. Anything to add, Christian?
I think Matt covered it. I mean, we play that role to allow you to create the sales orders, commit your inventory, and then we push that to QuickBooks Online. So the financial information stays in QuickBooks, and then everything else related to inventory can stay in Katana.
Nice. Next question, does Katana offer different units of measure, advanced/custom pricing on individual items, and overall clients? So
Yes and yes to keep it short. So we have like a list of units of measure that you can choose from, but you can also create your own. So and in addition to that, oftentimes we see our clients purchase in different units of measure and need to convert that. We also can support that as well.
super.
Regarding price lists, you can create custom price lists for individual customers and also for SKUs as well.
Love it. Next, how are credit memos, returns, and allowances handled between QuickBooks and Katana?
That is an excellent question. Um, so in short, for our returns, that you would simply create a stock adjustment, but I would have to circle back in terms of issuing a credit memo and what that looks like.
Okay. Um, Next question. How is stock after the stock adjustment, sales order modifications, and purchase order modifications handled between Katana and QuickBooks? Do those automatically flow from Katana to QuickBooks?
I mean, it depends. So like one of the things to keep in mind is like Katana doesn't invoice like sales orders automatically, and also it doesn't like bill purchase orders automatically. So oftentimes you'll be able to make those adjustments before you hit the invoice or the bill button before it goes to QuickBooks Online. But let's say in the event that like you have already done that and you need to make a change, it's really simple for you to just like delete that and then just like edit it within Katana, and then it'll push the correct information back into QuickBooks.
Super. Um, yeah, I feel like that's one of those questions, probably a lot of those questions where it's like, depends. It's one of those it depends answers. So it's always good to talk to Christian or Matt on
I
something like
don't
that.
I don't mean to interrupt, but going back to that credit memos question and allowances,
Mhm.
typically Christian, correct me if I'm wrong here, but they have the choice. Where are they going to be invoicing out of? Is it QuickBooks or Katana? Or do they have the choice to go either way? QuickBooks. So if you're invoicing out of QuickBooks, the credit memo is going to be dealt with in QuickBooks because that a credit memo is a reduction on the amount owed. That's that on the allowances. I'm not 100%
Can you
sure.
repeat that last part one more time? It kind of cut out.
Oh, sorry. So the credit memo, since you're invoicing out of QuickBooks, would also just be dealt with in QuickBooks. Because at that point, you've already got the invoice in QuickBooks. So you're just reducing the amount back to the customer. The allowances, I'm not 100% sure on. I'll try and find an answer, but just wanted to interject with that before we move on.
Cool. Another question. Do inventory breakdown, raw materials, work in progress, and finished goods quantities show up on the balance sheet in QuickBooks Online, or do we still need to create journal entries to account for these items?
Well, Katana would play that role of your source of truth for inventory, right?
Mhm.
I think they're asking about like how it's going to update their inventory account in GL.
Oh, okay.
If that's what they're asking about, you'll see the breakdown of all of that in Katana, but it will update your account, like the accounts in the chart of the chart of accounts in QuickBooks. But you're not going to look at QuickBooks for inventory data pretty much at all if you're using Katana.
Okay, yes, I think Matt captured that one. Um, Next question is why would I want to move from QuickBooks Online, or why would I want to go with QuickBooks Online versus something like Desktop Enterprise? Would be a question for Matt.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there's a lot of answers to that, but to really keep it simple, it's everything we've talked about up until this point. The fact that it's not a locally installed software, so you don't have to worry about updates, you don't have to worry about backing up data, you don't have to worry about securing your data. The fact that it's something that has room to grow with. We talked about the integrations and the API. With Enterprise, there's some integration, but it's clunky, it's slow, and you're really just kind of stuck with what you got. That does a lot, but it doesn't do nearly as much as what Katana does. And if you outgrow Katana and QuickBooks, there's other pieces you can add on and bolt on to that to keep it going and really streamline and get more efficient. Same with the channel connecting and everything like that. You've got to get tons of third-party pieces and tools running to get Enterprise to do a lot of that stuff, and it's still going to be pretty manual. Well, I know a lot of people are like, oh, I want an all-in-one solution. I want everything in one place. Unfortunately, well, fortunately, you're not going to want to do that. I mean, you're look to do something like that, you're looking at like a NetSuite or a Dynamics, and those are, like we've talked about, expensive, costly to get installed. You usually need to hire somebody to come in and maintain that. In this space that we work with, something like Katana as a it's a cheaper option. It's more efficient. It's a lot better than Enterprise for all those reasons.
Cool. Very nice. Um, looks we've got another big question. Is there a document showing the proper procedure for handling transactions? For example, on the credit memos, you said these are handled in QuickBooks, but is it a return of inventory into stock? Do I have to make an adjustment manually in Katana as I need to keep my inventory accurate?
I mean, yeah, like if somebody's gonna return like inventory, you can create a stock adjustment for a return to ensure that your inventory is accurate.
Nice.
And you're
Matt,
not going
any?
to have to do that in QuickBooks just to off of that.
Cool. Coming up to quarter to the top of the hour, maybe give one more minute in case anyone has any final questions. I've loved this. It's been so comprehensive, so many good questions. Thank you, everyone. I would definitely book in with Matt if you have QuickBooks focused questions, or Christian if you have Katana focused questions. And definitely ask both of them about the preferred pricing that we can offer you for coming to the webinar if you are looking to move forward with QuickBooks Online.
Yeah,
Okay.
there have been some really awesome questions, and really glad about like the engagement that we're getting today. So if there are any questions and you're nervous to ask, I would encourage you to ask it because likely somebody is thinking what you're also thinking.
No such thing as a dumb question either. They
Looks
are
like we
all
got
good questions.
one.
Oh,
Um, does
amazing.
Katana adjust inventory values inside of QuickBooks Online for ingredients that are consumed in the production of a bill of materials?
Say that one more time, Richard.
Does Katana adjust the inventory values inside of QuickBooks Online for ingredients that are consumed in a production build of materials?
In QuickBooks Online. Um,
So, so it's going to update your inventory account value, as in like the number value, dollar value of the account in your general ledger. But like we talked about earlier, all of the inventory is managed in Katana. So on that side of things, my understanding is it'll update your inventory in there, and then it'll update your account cost in QuickBooks, but only the cost. You would not be tracking inventory in QuickBooks in this situation, really at all.
Yes, that
Based on
is
the inventory that you're consuming in the production as well, Katana will also update the cost of goods for that specific production as well.
perfect. Yes. Okay. Um, Give you one more second for any final questions. These have been wonderful questions, everyone. Thank you.
Let me see if this
So,
works.
sounds like we got some future focused, growth oriented
Oh,
businesses in here.
I guess we got Christian throwing out hearts.
How'd you do that? Can I do that?
You have a
I guess not. That's a bummer. I can do it on FaceTime.
you got to book
Um,
a FaceTime call with Matt, and he can send you some hearts for those that are still in attendance here. But yeah, if you're kind of unsure, but like maybe you see an opportunity, I would encourage you to book some time with us. We're super transparent, right? So we can figure out like on the call if there's a fit. We'll be transparent if we aren't able to meet any of your requirements. And if there is an opportunity, we can, do an in-depth demo to actually show you what it could look like if you were to use QuickBooks and Katana.
Awesome. Thank you, Christian. Any final words, Matt?
Oh, I'm on mute. No,
There you
just
go.
thank you guys all for being here. And if you do have questions or anything like that, book some time with Christian, book some time with me. Like I said, there's no dumb questions. We'll do a business review. We can talk about what you're curious about. And yeah, we'd just be happy to shed some light on any of this stuff with you. Thanks for being here.
Super awesome. Thank you both. And thank you everyone for making the time today.
Thank you, everyone.